Today we're going to go ahead and do our really cute bumblebee tutorial. We have 4 brushes that we always use. This is your big giant flat brush. And don't mind my dog. And then we have our angled flat brush. Then we have your round brush. And then last but not least, your liner or little detail brush. So those are the 4 main brushes that you are going to need. We have, as always, your rinsing bucket. I just have a mason jar here. And your canvas, this is 12 by 12. Most of our videos are 16 by 20 or 11 by 14. I wanted to do something square, just change it up. But if you're doing a larger canvas, just be kind of mindful to maybe add more flowers to fill up the space and to make maybe your flower a little bit bigger. You just want it to fill in so you don't have empty space. And then extra napkins, of course. And today, I am painting from home. I have not had the chance to make it to the studio, so I'm kind of doing something I've actually been wanting to do for a while, but I ran out of paper plates. So what I like to do when I'm oil painting, and I figured, I'll just do this with acrylics, is I'm actually taking a glass cutting board. I just put white paper or something underneath so I can easily see my colors. But this is actually a glass cutting board. Something really cheap and expensive that you can use. A lot of artists like to paint on glass. Just don't do the side that has the grooves and flip it upside down so it's nice and smooth. But it helps, save the environment. I use a lot of those styrofoam plates just because it glides nice and easy. It doesn't soak into the paper plates. But this is a great alternative that you guys can actually use at home too. I have a big enough one where I can have room to mix, but I just put white paper down underneath it. So new learning technique I've never told you guys we got for this video. So one other helpful thing is my daughter Claire, she went outside and picked me some little flowers. We have bumblebees all over our yard, and these little flowers, she went ahead and picked this for me. These little flowers are actually what we're going to be trying to paint today. So I have these out for reference, and we're ready to get started. So we are going to use the big giant flat brush for our whole background, and then we'll put it away. We won't need it anymore. And what you're going to need, these are our colors for today. We are going to have purple, blue, black, yellow, white, green, and the tiniest bit of orange for the bee. Now, when we go to mix colors, what I'm going to have you do is you're going to take a scoop of green and a little scoop of blue and mix them together. And you're going to take a little scoop of yellow, maybe another one. I don't want it too bright, but it just gives it a little perk in color. And you don't have to mix them 100%. And for now, we're going to leave it at this darker shade, but I'm gradually going to be adding more yellows and more white as we get to the center. The center is going to be really light. So what I'm going to have you guys do when you have your brush loaded up, we're going to start from this upper corner and do little strokes sideways. Now, when you're painting, I'm going to show you a mistake. If you are going back and forth, and you lift off of your canvas, you're going to see these little creases that look like this. Or if you pull up, you see how that happened? Just very light, like you're barely touching the canvas. Go from one edge to the other and it will smooth out. So that's a really nice, helpful thing to know so you don't get these streaks that are unwanted. And sometimes you gotta add a lot of paint. Sometimes if you go too thin, maybe let it dry a minute and then go back and add more paint. It seems it always wants to be nice and sheer like in the corners, so it might need a second coat. But what you're going to do with acrylics, they dry very, very quick, and you'll start to get where it won't slide onto the canvas. So it means you need more water. So I just kind of re-dip the brush in the water, tap off the extra, and then I go ahead, replenish the paint, and then keep going. Now you're going to need to keep mixing as you go, as there's a lot of canvas to fill, especially if you're doing a large one. But as you start to get into the middle, we're going to go lighter. But before we do that, there's a couple spots up here where it's real dark and down here. So what you're going to do is take just a tiny, tiny bit of black and mix it in. If it's too black, you're going to have to remix it because it is harder to take black out. So I would just remix it completely. But take a little bit of your black and go ahead and darken this up here for your second coat. And that will kind of help give it some nice coverage. I want my edges to be nice and dark. So this way, we go from dark to light. Now we'll come back to that puddle. Try not to get rid of it because we're going to put a little bit of dark down here. But rinse your brush out now. Let's start to go a little bit lighter. So what you're going to do is you're going to mix a new puddle. You're going to take yellow, green, a little bit of blue, and you see the difference in the color? This one's more dark, and this is like a, not like a bright, bright lime color, but if you add a little white to it, it will get really, really bright. And we are going to do this throughout the middle. Now the biggest thing is right where your dark color is, you're going to go back and forth with this light color. You're going to go kind of over top of the dark and go back and forth until they blend together. You don't want to get any big streaks, no big lines. You don't want it to look like a stripe. You want everything to fade in, and both colors have to be wet. So if you took a break and then you came back and your dark green is dry, put another little bit of the dark green back on top, and they'll fade into each other. See how nice and smooth that transition is? And what you're going to do is do this lighter color now all through your middle. Now, you might have to take some white on your brush and blend it in. There we go. If it gets too dark, just take white like this and go ahead and put it in. So what we're painting right now, like when you take a picture, like a photograph of something up close, a lot of your background is going to be blurry. You want your main focus on your subject matter, which is the bee and the flower it's landing on. So this is actually supposed to represent like a bunch of tall grass in the background. So you're not going to have a bunch of detail. It's going to be a blur. So don't get too picky with this part. Just make sure it all blends together smoothly. So take your time, and if you have to keep mixing colors, don't worry about it not being exactly like the color next to it. You want a variety of color to make it look more realistic. So I'm going to keep going. Maybe in the middle here, I'll put a little bit more yellow, brighten it up a little bit. There we go, that's better. Kind of want it to look like the sun is kind of peeking in between some of the leaves maybe. And then as you start to get down to this corner, take that little bit of black back in there and darken up your edges. So these are going to be like the shadows. So like your flower would be casting a shadow over here. So I'd add a little more blue and a little more black to my green. Now, as you're painting, before we let this dry, when you're finished, I recommend that you go and paint your edges. You could do it later towards the end, all like a solid black, or you can go and paint your edges with some of these green colors. You can try to match them up. So it's totally preference, or you can buy a frame and not even paint them all together. Now, if you think you went too light, you could go and take a little bit of your like darker green. Let's grab a little bit of the dark, and I'm gonna blend it through. See, it just softens it up a little bit. So it's nice. You can always fix things as you go. Now, anytime you work on smoothing out any lines on your darker spot, rinse your brush before you go back to your middle because you don't want to get it all dark and muckied up. But I am just about done. I'm going to take a little bit of that dark color up here and give it a second coat on my corner. I might even do a little dark down here. There we go. Beautiful. Do a little bit more. And then just keep working with it until you're happy. And what you'll do next is we are going to let it dry. You have to let it completely dry before we add on any of the background, like flowers. That's what we're going to do next. So get all your dark shading in. I'm going to put maybe a little more black. Bingo. And I'm happy. I am done. So I'm going to leave it alone. To speed up a drying process, I kind of, if I had my paper plate, I'd fan it off. Or you could get a blow dryer and put it on the cool setting and just hold it up far enough away so it's not right on top of it. Or just kind of relax, go get a sip of coffee, a cocktail, and we'll come back when it's dry. If it's really shiny, it's still wet. So you want to kind of maybe do a little finger test or look and see if it's shiny. Acrylics take maybe minutes. Not too long. I wouldn't say any more than like 5-10 minutes. It should be definitely dry. It just depends how thick you went with your acrylics. But little break, and then we'll come right back and start doing our flowers. So the first brush we're going to use is going to be either your round brush, or you can use the tip of your angled flat brush. And what we're going to do is mix together purple, white, and blue. So I'm going to mostly do the blue first. You can see my messy palette looks almost just like here. I'm going to go ahead. Let me hold this up better for you. I'm going to take the purple and just put it aside for later. We'll put a little bit of white into it. We'll already have it mixed up, so when we're ready to go, we can just grab it. But then the next color we're going to do, and I'm not even going to rinse my brush. I'm just going to dip right into my blue and my white and mix them together till you get like a baby blue. Now, if you kind of see, it looks like a marble. I didn't mix it all the way. That's okay. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do dabs. Now, if you're doing a really, really big canvas, you're going to make sure you go all the way up to the top and make it go all the way to the bottom. You want it nice and filled in. If you're using your round brush, you're just going to use that. If you're using your angled flat brush like me, I just use the tip of it. And I'm going to dab like this. Dab, dab, dab. And as you see, because I did not mix the... Oops. I painted onto the other painting. As you're dabbing, I did not mix the paint 100%. You're going to get like little bits of white and blue and dark blue peeking in. That's perfect. So it's kind of adding 3 colors for you all at one time. But I'm just going to dab, dab, dab until the paint runs out. Now, they kind of, how they're placed on here, they almost look like lilacs. Like how the shape, it kind of looks like a cone, like really pointy at the top and then it gets wider towards the bottom. You can do them like that, or you could do them in clusters. A great example, I had my daughter pick these for me. This is actually kind of very similar to what we're painting, minus, you know, the little inside of them, because again, it's in the background. You're not going to see a lot of detail. But this color is like perfect. And when they're all clumped together, it's going to look pretty much just like that. But they are just going to appear, these little dabs, like individual clumped together flowers. And I'm going to come over here in the middle. And if you're doing the gallery wrap where you painted your sides, you're also going to dab on your edge. I'm going to come over here, and once it starts to run out, go ahead and grab a little bit more. I'm going to dab, pull down this way, and I just keep dabbing till the paint runs out. And you want to leave a little bit of space in between these so you can see your background. Dab, dab, dab. I'm going to do one here in the middle. And again, I kind of want it to just look faded, so I just keep dabbing till the paint goes out. I'm going to do a little bit up in this corner. And then we'll get ready to add our purple. I'm also going to add a little bit here. You can even brush so it looks like it's way in the distance. You can kind of brush some with your really, really dried up paintbrush. You can brush a little bit on so it looks even more faded. And if it's too like heavy of a paint, with your dry paintbrush, just kind of poke, 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 on, off, until it soaks right into the canvas. And just kind of pull that wet paint around till it starts to fade a little bit better. Now, once you have all your blue placed, what you're going to do is grab that purple we mixed. And I don't get as crazy as I did with the blue, but I'm going to add a little bit of this purple. I'm going to do this light purple first. Now, that's a little bit too bright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush off a little bit of the extra paint, and then I'm just going to tap over it just to fade it in a little bit better with my dried brush. So I'm just going to start giving it my highlights now with the purple. And then in some spots, you know, I'm going to do down here as well, maybe some little bits of purple. I'm going to take just plain purple now and use a little bit of the dark purple. Definitely not as much of this. I just want a little bit of extra color. So you'll have a little bit of the dark. Now again, if it gets to be a little too heavy, wipe off the extra purple, get a clean brush, and then tap, 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 and let it fade in, and it will soften up your color. There we go. If you add too much purple, take a little bit of that blue and then go on top of it. And just kind of play around with this until you're happy. And then we're going to have to wait for this to dry before we do the next flower, because your next flower is going to be white and we don't want to pull any of this color into it. So just keep on kind of playing around with it. Maybe take a little bit of purple. You could do this space up here. Again, that's a little too light for me. I want it to fade into the background. So I'm going to wipe off the extra paint. Tap, 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 and let it fade on in. Alright, so we are ready to go on. We're going to do your flower, and then we're going to do a couple stems to make a little bit more detail in your painting. Now, I zoomed up here so you can get a really good look when we go to do this flower. Now, it's a little more detailed. Your background was kind of blurry, a little bit messy. This is going to be a little bit more defined. And there's going to be times when you're going to use this brush here, your round brush, and you're going to also use your little detail brush. So what I'm going to have you do is mostly use white for your little tiny petals. They're going to be very small. They're not going to be dabbed on. They're going to be kind of nice and precise. But what you're going to do is take white onto your round brush, and you're going to kind of shape it out first. Now mine's kind of in the middle but a little off to the left. And all it is just going like this. Doing a little tiny blob like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do one for you. Like really, really up close so everybody can see, okay? Let me grab a piece of paper and give you a quick demo. I'm going to have to do this with a darker color so you guys can see. So don't use this color, but focus on the shape, okay? I'm going to pretend like this is my white petal, and I'm just going to do it with blue. To do your petal, it's going to be like that. So you're going to kind of curve, curve, fill in. Curve, curve, fill in. But they're going to be teeny tiny like this. Now, if you're doing a huge canvas, make yours a little bit bigger than mine. But curve, curve, fill in. If you're not comfortable using the round brush, do it with the little one. Now this is where your little brush comes in. Let me grab my white. So these are actually going to be reversed. Your big petals are going to be white, and then you're going to do this next step that I'm about to do with blue. So I'm doing it opposite just so you can see, because I'm doing it on a white piece of paper. But when you do all these petals, on some of them, you don't have to do them on all of them, you're going to curve, curve, pull up the middle. Curve, curve, pull up the middle. Now, they don't have to be like right on the outside. If you make like a little boo-boo and you see a little bit poking through, not the end of the world. Pull, pull up the middle. And just those little tiny bits of detail will really, really make your painting. Let me show you up close. See those details? So you're doing the white petal, but when you do the curve, curve up the middle, you're going to do it in purple and blue. So let's go ahead. Again, use your little tiny brush or your round brush when you do these. If it's easier, go ahead and do the little one. I'm going to do the little one just because I have this brush here. But kind of shape it out first. Now some of these will overlap each other, and that's totally okay. You don't want them all to be spaced apart. So what I mean is you could come up and overlap, and you can have them touching. It's gonna be pretty big because, let me show you right here. It needs to be big enough like where the bee would be able to rest on it. Like if he flew up there and sat on it, it's almost as big as your bee. Now I really have no idea what this white flower is called, but I see them like all over my yard when I don't cut my grass. But I always say, like in my paintings, I'm not a gardener, I just paint the flowers. So if anybody does this tutorial and knows what they're called, feel free to post it when you share your picture. But I'm just kind of doing the outline of it first, so I kind of can get the shape on, and then I fill on the inside. And I'm going to zoom out here a little bit so you can see my shape, and then I'll zoom back in. Now leave a little bit of room. You're going to have a big green stem, so just kind of keep that in mind. So now that you have all of your white placed, there's going to be some spots where you can see through onto your background. That is fine. If you want some filler space, what I would recommend is mixing either a light blue or a very pale purple. So I'm just going to take a little bit more white to a part of my blue just to really lighten it up. And you can use that as like a filler to go in between. So this way you can kind of start to see it fills in that green without making everything kind of blob together. So I'm just going to put a little bit of these anywhere I see green. And then you'll be able to do that little extra detail that I was showing you guys. So go ahead and take a little bit of time to fill this in. And let me show you the original up close, and you can pause this so you can see it easy. But there's a lot of light blue now that I use for filler. So go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to show you how to do your design. Now, I only do this on a few. I maybe have like 10 or 15 of the blue and 10 or 15 of the purple, because I don't want it to look too busy. But you're going to find a petal, you're going to curve, curve, and pull up. Curve, curve, pull up. Kind of looks like a little duck footprint. And then you can go downwards, curve, curve, pull through. And you can go over here. So I don't really think about too hard like where it's going to go. Oops. There, try to keep this steady. Curve, curve, pull up. I just kind of go for it. So I do that with the blue. And then your purple. So after you have your petals the way you'd like them, I'm going to zoom out. We're going to start on doing your stems. Now I'm going to go and keep using my little brush, but just be mindful your little tiny brush does not hold a lot of paint. So if you're doing this size canvas or like an 11 by 14, this would work good, but if not, I would recommend using your round brush. Just don't push too hard. The harder you push, the bigger the line is going to get. So you don't want it too thick. That we're going to take a little bit of your dark green that we used like in your corner. Just make sure whatever green you're using stands out from your background. But I'm going to take a little bit of black and some green and mix it so it looks like a pine tree green. I might add a little bit of blue to it and a little bit of yellow just to give it back that nice green tint. There we go. So you can see it's still got that green pigment in there, but it's not pure black. Just want it really dark. And what you're going to do is you are going to come up into your flower here and you're going to kind of curve down a little bit like a curve and then kind of come here and curve the other way. So it will look like this. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to take this and push very lightly and come all the way down off of your canvas. Now might need to go over with your little brush, give it a second coat. There you are. Now if it's too dark, you can wait for it to dry and we'll give it a highlight with a little bit of a lighter green. But now I'm going to go and do this to these, but I'm going to go a little bit lighter because they're way in the distance. I want this flower to be my main focus. Everything else, what you're going to do is you're going to take a little bit of white and a tiny bit of green. So it looks like this. But I'm going to water it down because I want it to be faded. I don't want it to be really in your face. So what I'm going to do is put a lot of water so it's not really runny, but it's see-through. And I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to go behind here, stop, come down this flower, and go like that. And I'm going to go over it a few times to let it kind of soak into the canvas. Again, I want it to be a little bit see-through. I don't want it to stand out a whole lot. I want it bright. And I'm going to do that to most of these flowers where they end. Go ahead and put that one here, and then I'll go back and forth, let it kind of fade on in. If you're having a hard time with it fading in, you could take a clean brush and then go back and forth with a clean brush. And then it will kind of give you that look you're hoping for. And you're going to do this even where there's not a flower. Like maybe up here, I want to have a branch. Again, too bright. So I'm going to take my clean brush, back and forth, and let it fade in. If you don't like it, take a little bit more water to your brush and kind of wipe it off a little bit. There we go. You can even take, I kind of made mine a little thicker than I wanted. So I'm going to take like a damp paper towel and just push really lightly and wipe it off. So if you don't like something, you just got to work real fast. I'm going to redo that one. I'm going to add a little bit more water to it. There we go. And then I'm going to take my clean round brush and fade it in. Remember, the harder you push, the thicker it's going to be. So try not to make it too thick. If you make something thick, again, just take maybe to part of it and wipe it off. There, kind of thinned it out a little bit. There, that's better. And you could even do this with your round brush. Maybe this will come out here. And just brush it on wherever I think there might be a stem. Maybe I'll put one down here. And again, go back and forth, back and forth. Let it soak in. Maybe I'll brush one up through the middle. And this is just a little extra detail. I want to have a couple stems going here, there. Can even pull one up this way. They can overlap each other. And I think I'm pretty much happy with it. Maybe this one down here. I'll go like that. I'm going to try to poke this line behind here, so I'm going to go and stop and then go over. If it gets on top of there, you can just kind of wipe it off with your finger. But yeah, I think I really like this. Maybe I'll put one right here. And then thin that line up a little bit with a paper towel. There. Again, if you wipe off with a paper towel, don't push too hard because the paint underneath of it will pull off. So I just push really lightly. But there we go. We are done. So I have a couple faded lines. And we are ready to start the next part. Okay. So the next part is, once this is dry, I'm going to just give it a little bit of a highlight. If it's too dark, take a little bit of yellow, and just yellow without white, because the yellow, doesn't matter what brand I use, it's always really transparent. So just adding a little bit of yellow on top will really tone it down. So you could give it a little highlight. There we go. Kind of fades it in to the painting a little bit better where it doesn't stand out so much. I'm just going to use white paint. And I would recommend just kind of watering it down just a hair, just like re-dip into your bucket and just have it so it's nice and wet but not super runny. This way it's a little bit sheer where it's easier to wipe off. So you can use chalk, you can decide to do pencil, you can even do like a white paint marker. It's totally your preference, but I'm going to use my little tiny brush with white. So I'm going to re-water my brush, replenish my white so it's nice and ready to go. So your bee is going to be fairly big. It's almost going to be like half the size of your flower. But when you get like the wings, it's almost the whole thing is as big as your flower. But we're going to do the wings last. You're going to do this in little shapes, bit by bit by bit, to make it as easy as possible for you. We're going to kind of think of a kidney bean to start. And you're going to have it come off this part of your flower. So again, you want it fairly big, because these flowers they land on, I'm talking about those little, really small weeds that grow in your grass. They're really little. So what you're going to do is you're gonna come up here so there's enough room for the front legs to touch a petal and for his little little mouth thing that he sucks up the pollen so that can touch a petal. So you're gonna get kind of close. You're gonna do like a letter C for the top of the head, and then you're gonna expand this way back and give him a nice butt. And then what you're gonna do is round this part up, round this part up, and then you're just gonna kind of loop around to connect. So it looks like one big giant kidney bean on your canvas. And then what you're gonna do is we'll go ahead and fill this in. We'll worry about everything else later. So if you have to make any adjustments, if you have to make it wider, go ahead and do so. I might just kind of make it a little bit more rounded out on the butt. And I might make them a little tiny bit bigger, just a hair, on the back end. So this is where you make any adjustments needed for your bee. If you need to pause me, definitely pause me. Now to fill it in, we're going to do the whole thing black, okay? So you're going to trace over your white that you did and fill him in black. And then we'll wait for it to dry before we put any yellow on top of certain areas. But go ahead and fill in your kidney bee, your kidney bee bean looking thing, and then we'll wait for that to dry. Okay, so now your little kidney bean is going to be very dry. We are ready to start adding detail. Now I had to zoom in because I want you to see all the little fuzz, all the antennas, the legs, everything where they need to be fine. Make sure to pause me if you are feeling I'm going a little too fast, but I'm going to try to take it as slow as I can. But what we're going to do next is we're going to do the yellow inside your bee. Now, do not do plain yellow by itself. If you remember when I told you when we did the stem, yellow by itself is very, very transparent. So go ahead and mix equal amounts, and you just need like a drop of a dime. You don't want to waste paint. Mix white and yellow together so you get like a nice light color. And what we're going to do is add about 2-3 patches of this. And what you're going to do, you're going to come up here. Now the whole front of the head, like where the eyeball is going to be, is black. But right behind that, like on the shoulder area, you're going to get really close to your outline. And you're going to go ahead, and if you have to, kind of on your plate, twist and pull your little brush so you get a nice point. You're going to use that nice point by pushing really soft, and you're going to pull out little fuzzies. You're going to make nice fur on your bee. And you can even pull this down off your canvas into the green so it's nice and hairy. And we're going to make this pretty thick. We just don't want to get far into the head area. Now this will probably take a few coats. You might need to make it brighter by adding a second coat, but right now just primarily focus on pushing very, very, very lightly and making them nice and fuzzy. Let me see how far I can zoom in on here so you can see that. So again, twist and pull into the paint to get a nice tip like this. You want to pull out, get a nice point, and then go ahead and give it a second coat if it's not bright enough for your liking. Just make sure, hopefully you guys can see my big hand's not in the way. You want to pull out some fur, and you can pull some up on the top. So this is going to be one band, and eventually we'll put a little bit of orange in here too. But for right now, let's focus on just the yellow. If you want to make your yellow a little darker, you can go now on your second coat and put a little bit more yellow than the white. You just really want to make sure it stands out. If you're starting to pull some black through and it's not sticking, it just means your black didn't dry enough. So maybe wait another second. Now we're going to come back here and just on the top, like where our wing is going to be, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of yellow, and on the bottom, right in the belly area, I'm going to put a little bit of fur with this yellow. And then I'm going to make it kind of wrap around the back end. So the butt is going to be black, but this is going to go right about here. And again, keep it fuzzy. And then we're also going to get your wings in here before we start to go really, really detailed. But this is just a start. So what you're going to do is rinse your brush. You're going to keep using it. You're going to take a little bit of white, and we're going to add the wings. Now I do like the wings to be a little tiny bit transparent. So take a little bit of water, just like we did with the yellow, and put a little bit more water into your white paint. And you're only going to do about the puddle of a dime. Let me just check here, make sure you guys get the wingspan in here. I'll maybe zoom out. There we go. So we're going to come right up here. Right up here. And you're going to come out, let's say about an inch. 1.5 inches, but you're going to start right here on the top of the body, and then you're going to come out, loop around, pull down, and stop. So you're going to make like a shepherd's hook right off the top. It might come down a little bit more, and then I'm going to do another one off of that little hook, and then I'm going to pull from right here, like where my yellow is, and pull up. So it looks like a lopsided heart. So you got that big shepherd's hook, and then you're going to do a hook going the opposite way, and then you can fill it in. All white. So this is your first wing. And then the next wing is going to come onto your bee in the body. So re-wet your brush. Your little brush does not hold a lot of paint, and it dries up quick. So re-wet your brush, re-wet, and then grab more paint. We're going to come now right below this wing, and it's going to be real skinny. You're going to come out, loop around, and then come back in real skinny. And fill it in. So it kind of looks like one big flower petal. Now, I came in a little too thick right here on accident. So if that happens to you, you could just go back, take a little bit of black, and then fill it in so it gets skinny in the middle. Now, we're going to add more details and stuff later, but for right now, I am very happy with how this looks. I'm just actually going to take a little bit more white and come up this way. And I'm actually making a little bit of like a gray, so mixing a little bit of white and black. And just this upper part here, I'm going to cast a shadow because of this wing. And I'm just going to put a little bit of gray right there. And then we are ready to do some more detail. So we're going to use this little brush for the whole thing. You're going to twist and pull that paint so you get a nice point. And what you're going to do is all around the outside of your black on your bee. Let me go ahead and zoom in here again. I'm going to add little fuzz all around anywhere that's black. And I'm just poking so softly, and I'm making that nice pointed tip. You're going to make it nice and fuzzy the whole way around your bee. This is what's really going to start to shape your bee to look realistic, is this step right here. You don't want anything smooth and rounded. You want it nice and furry. You're even going to put some of this fuzz into your wing on your bee. See how I'm pulling up over the white? I'm even going to do that down here. So you're pulling a little bit of fuzz. And right here, I'm going to pull it up a little bit higher. Nice fuzzy bee. It's really going to make your whole thing realistic looking. Okay, perfect. So I have my adorable little fuzzy bee. I'm also going to, right here, pull up a little bit into the yellow too. That's very important on both parts. If you accidentally pull too much over your yellow, you can always put it back in. Speaking of putting the yellow back in, I have one more step I'm going to do. And remember how before, at the very beginning of the tutorial, I said you'd have a little bit of orange? You're going to take a little bit of that orange and stroke just a little bit through your yellow. It will just give it a little bit of an extra pop of color. And I don't need to add too much to see the results. If you add too much orange, just go back into your yellow and cover it. But this is going to remain fuzzy as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is start to add the little feet and antennas, and that's just black. So you're really going to twist and pull your paint to get a nice tip. And you're going to push super, super lightly, not hard at all. We're going to do about 4 legs. So one's going to start right below the like yellow part near the head. And there's going to be like 2 sections to it. You're going to kind of pull down and then curve at an angle. So it looks like it's bent. You're going to kind of thicken it up a little towards the top. And then you're going to do that with all these legs. So I'm going to put one kind of in the middle here. And if it touches your flower, cool. If it doesn't, it's just going to look like it's flying onto it. So don't worry. But you're going to make your little legs. I'm going to put one here. And then one on the back end. Then the last thing you're going to do is there's kind of like a little thing off the very top. It hooks down. And you're just going to push super light. This is not going to be as thick as your legs. But this is the little thing that kind of sucks up the pollen. And then lastly, you're going to maybe do this in a gray. So mix a little bit of like a silver color by doing mostly white and a little black. And same thing, this is going to be really, really thin. You're just going to put the little antenna that curves off the top. If you really want it noticeable, you could do it in black. I might actually go over it with a little bit of black so you can see it better. But there's like a little antenna that goes off of here. And then the last thing with your silver, you put a little dot in the middle of the head for an eye. And then if you also want to get really detailed, you could take a little bit of that color that you used and give your little fur on the black. I kind of just did it like around the outside of it. You can add a little bit of a highlight to make it look fuzzy with the gray. Just it gives it a little bit more of that fur look to it. And I'll just do a little bit around the face. You don't want it too light, but just enough where it just lightly stands out. And we are almost done. I might actually add a little bit more white to the eye so it stands out a little bit from that fur. But we are almost finished. There's just a few little designs that I want to add in the wing. And if you want to pause this original, let me get really up close. There's some little lines like how you would think of a monarch butterfly, how there's lines. If you want to do a pink color, if you mix just the tiniest bit of red and white together, you could do that. When you get your color, you're still going to use your little brush. You're just going to do those little crisscross designs in your butterfly wing. So I highly recommend you pause me and take a look at the design I make. It doesn't have to be exactly like it, just so you get those little designs. It will really just kind of make it a little extra detailed and more realistic. But I just use like a pink. And then the last thing, if you want a little extra color, remember how we did that around round and then like through the center? You can add a little bit of this red just to tie the whole painting together. It just kind of completes it. And I literally just do maybe like 7 of these. I don't want to go overboard because this color is not overpowering in nature. It's mostly, it looks white when you see it outside in person. But just for a little extra color, I am going to put a little bit of it on, and we are done. So let me go ahead and zoom out so you can see mine compared to the original, and then we'll sign our name. And you can add glitter if you wish to get really fancy with it. You could put like a glitter swirl to look like he was flying, or you could do glitter like in the wings if you love glitter like me. I don't have it in the original, but I highly recommend, if you choose glitter, to do the Craft Twinkle by Deco Art. So here's the finished design. Just make sure you're in love with it. Everything is perfect. Just make sure you have like all your colors in that you need. Make sure you have like your wings nice and smooth and nice and long. Everything's proportioned well. And once you're all set, you're ready to sign your name. And I just kind of like how you do the wings. You're going to do that twist and pull to get the nice point. And you could sign with any color. I'm just going to go ahead and do black on the bottom. And we're all finished. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. I'm a huge fan of bees. I appreciate you guys painting with me so much. Well, thank you again, you guys. Till next time, I'll see you later.